8 years ago, Brittany and I were $120,000 in debt. We were barely making any money. We were on the brink of potentially ruining our future when it came to our finances. This wasn't because we were being immature or we were out of control with our money. We weren't going to Vegas and gambling $10,000 a night or anything like that. We had bad information. So one afternoon, Brittany and I attended one of Dave's live events, and not only did we hear a lot of information that made perfect sense, we also heard some things that kind of shined light on, well, at least some beliefs that I had personally that were very destructive when it comes to being successful financially and managing money. So after all this happened, right, after we went through this live event, I felt like I was Neo in the Matrix, and my eyes were being opened to this huge world that was actually reality and was shining light and making me realize more and more of like what I believed was actually just totally wrong. So with that being said, what's up guys? I'm Mike.
And I'm Brit.
And these are the 7 biggest things that Brittany and I learned becoming debt-free that literally changed our lives. The very first thing, and this applies a lot to me, I'm not sure how much it applies to Brittany, but the very first thing that changed at least my life when it comes to money is that money is not evil. And I think this comes from a misquote of 1 Timothy 6:10, which says, "For the love of money is the root of all evil." Somehow this got twisted in society to say that money is the root of all evil. Money is not evil. Money is an inanimate object. It has no intrinsic moral value. It can be used for good things, it can be used for evil things, and it has a lot more to do with the person who's using it. It actually has everything to do with the person who's using it and nothing to do with the money itself. This is something that Dave Ramsey has said on his radio show a lot, maybe in live events, I don't remember, but definitely on his radio show. It was profound to me because I believed that money was evil. Looking back on it, I think a lot of the reason I believed that was because I didn't have very much self-confidence, nor was I earning a lot of money. And so not only was I frustrated at myself for not being able to verbalize what I wanted to verbalize due to not having confidence in myself, but there was all sorts of things that I wanted to do. All of them cost money, and here I am, somebody who's barely earning anything, not able to do 99% of what I want to do because money is involved. And therefore, since I wasn't able to do it, well, money must be evil. I was looking at it the wrong way. What I should have done is tried to figure out how to better myself so I could earn more money. What I should have done was learn how to believe in myself more so I could kind of get up off my feet and start doing something with my life. And that was a really unhealthy opinion to have, because if you think money is evil, if you think money is a bad thing, I mean, why work for it? I would think that gives you a lot less of a chance of succeeding later in life financially if you just think it's bad, because you're gonna try and avoid it. You're just gonna be bitter about those who have it. You're gonna feel bad about yourself all the time. You're gonna think of yourself as a victim and not in control of your life, and you're not going to try and take control of things on your own, and you're going to wait for other people to help you out and the government to take control of your life or something like that. That was definitely the case with me. And all of that sprung from a lack of self-confidence, but it also sprung from this belief that money is a bad thing and wealth is a bad thing, and it's not.
So number 2, the second thing we want to talk about is that Dave Ramsey mentions a lot about consumer debt and how bad it is. The other part that he doesn't really expand upon as much as something that we noticed was just how unhealthy and the type of side effects it has on your life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so 90% of what Dave Ramsey talks about and helps other people with is becoming debt-free, getting them out of debt. And most of that debt is consumer debt, like student loans, credit cards, automobiles, things like that. What Brittany's trying to say is that consumer debt has some psychological effects on you. It not only has side effects on your pocketbook, but it has side effects in your mind as well, which are negative.
In your life. So something that I had a hard time dealing with was just the stress aspect of having so much debt, especially my student loan debt. That was a big part of that $120,000 that Mike mentioned at the beginning. And something else I'll mention is there have been studies that do show that stress negatively impacts your health overall. And it was something that we could definitely see in our lives, just having to deal with that with so much debt.
So one of these side effects that consumer debt had on Brittany's in my life, pocketbook aside, well, somewhat related to our pocketbook, was the freedom that we had.
Yeah.
We had so much debt that our freedom was very restricted. The choices you have, I guess would be a better way of saying it. Brittany and I had very limited choices with our lives because we had so limited money. Most of our income every month was going toward our debts, with paying our student loans, car payments, that sort of thing. And we had very little left over to go out and enjoy our lives, which does take a toll on you mentally because you're not really able to do what you want to do. Which leads me to point number 3, the third thing we learned from Dave Ramsey, something that he says a lot: cash is king and your income is your biggest wealth building tool. For Brittany's in my case, I would say 60, 70% of our income was going out every month in payments when we were first becoming debt free. We had very limited choices. We could barely afford our cost of living.
Yeah.
So like,
which was very, very minuscule.
Yeah, very low. There was no headroom to even think about building wealth. But that leads me to another thing. It's kind of a sub-point of this point. Something that Brittany and I picked up on, and something that we were learning more and more of as we became freer and freer of all of our debt, was that if cash is king, cash flow is the emperor who sits above the king. And I'm gonna do my best to explain this. I haven't ever tried to explain this on video. I've made some very brief notes on my phone here. This is something very profound that Brittany and I kind of recognized or realized toward the end of our debt-free journey. I'm gonna compare it to a scuba diver. A scuba diver has an oxygen tank on his back when he goes underwater so he can breathe. That oxygen tank is limited. There's a fixed amount of oxygen for that scuba diver to breathe while he is underwater. And as soon as he exhausts the oxygen, he's got to come up. Well, hopefully before that happens, he comes up.
Yeah.
But as soon as that oxygen is gone, the scuba diver better know what to do, or else things aren't looking so good. Think of the oxygen tank as your emergency fund, your pile of cash, right? That's in your bank account, just sitting there, or any pile of cash that you may have. Let's say $1 million, let's just say. Let's say you have $1 million. If that $1 million is all you have, and you have no income, and you're only using that $1 million to do normal everyday things, that $1 million will eventually run out. Just like the scuba diver's oxygen tank will run out of oxygen. What I'm trying to say is the scuba diver, he has a set amount of oxygen that he can breathe. Once it's out, it's out. Same thing if you have $1 million in the bank. Once it's out, it's out. So cash flow would kind of be equivalent to a continuous supply of oxygen for the scuba diver. It's just, in this case, it's money. There's this whole idea in society about being wealthy and being a millionaire, like being a millionaire makes you, I guess, rich or whatever. I mean, this is a subjective term, but let's just say $1 million makes you rich. The millionaires that I know in my life, which aren't many, but the ones that I do know, they don't have $1 million in the bank. They have $1 million divided up into assets. And in a lot of cases, those assets earn them money passively, whether that be investment income, real estate income, other businesses that they put their money into and get some type of a dividend from, business deals, things like that. My point is, and I'm not sure how well I've made it, if all you have is just a big pile of money and you have no cash flow, it's gonna run out eventually. And what Brittany and I realized is that the more cash flow we have, the more things we can do. If Brittany and I weren't earning any money right now, but we had $1 million in the bank, I would still be pretty cautious about how we live our lives, because I would know in the back of my mind, like, okay, well, the quicker we use that money, the quicker it's gone and we're screwed. But let's say we have $10,000 in the bank, but we're earning $10,000 a month from different income sources that we don't have to work all that much for. Well, that's a whole different ballgame. If we can rely on that $10,000 per month every single month, then the amount of money that we have in our bank account becomes kind of a lesser issue to an extent. Obviously, you'd want to have an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses, that sort of thing. This has actually changed the way Brittany and I use our money, where like before we were becoming debt free, we bought things that decrease in value, more or less, things that don't really earn us money. We were spending our money on things that don't earn us money. Now, Brittany's and my focus with our money is much more on investments and assets, which will bring us a return, which will increase our cash flow year over year, month over month, so that we're not so dependent on like a pile of cash that we have laying around in a bank account somewhere.
Right. We switched more from just a saving mindset to more of an investment mindset.
Yeah.
And the fourth thing, we would ask ourselves the question when buying something, how much does it cost, not how much per month?
Ask yourself the question when you're buying something or looking to buy something, what's the total cost going to be, not what does it cost me per month? A good example of this, before Brittany and I got married, if you've watched our other videos, you'll probably be familiar with this story. I bought a brand new Toyota Prius for $30,000 when I was still in college, barely making any money. I justified this because the Toyota Prius was going to save me, I don't know, $50 in gas every month, just to be generous. I had a Honda Civic at the time, which was almost paid off. The monthly payment for the Honda Civic was $220 a month. My new monthly payment for the Prius was $420 a month. Let's just say I did save $50 in gas every month. So that would be a net increase in my car payment of $150. The flaw in this thinking is that I was only thinking monthly. I was not thinking long-term, how much is this going to cost? Because a car payment or any loan comes with interest, which is just money you're throwing out, money you're just giving to the bank because you don't have enough money yourself to pay for something. And I wasn't thinking about this when I bought this car. I was just thinking, okay, well, I can maybe sort of afford it on a monthly basis because it doesn't take all of my money. It was still way too high of a car payment for my income. I have no idea how I got it, just to be clear. No idea. I was earning maybe $1,200 a month at the time. My Civic was almost paid off, you guys. Like, I could have been free and clear of a car payment, and I could have been using that extra money to do something better with. I think by the time I sold the car, I'd owned it for a year, so maybe spent $2,000 in interest over the course of a year, and then I sold it for a few $1,000s less than I paid for it. So I lost $7,000 or so owning the Toyota Prius when I could have been free and clear on my Honda Civic in a couple months. Long story short, how much does it cost total, not how much per month? Which leads into point number 5, or the 5th thing we learned that totally changed our lives, is that buying a brand new car will totally destroy the average person's ability to become wealthy. The key phrase here is the average person. Cars are depreciating assets. According to Black Book, a new car's value will depreciate 60% in the first 5 years. It'll go down 20 to 30% in the first year alone. Let's just say you buy a $30,000 car brand new, like I did. I lost 20 to 30% of that car's value in the first year. So 20 to 30% of $30,000 would be $6,000 to $9,000, and that was probably true.
Yeah.
I think I got a pretty good trade-in deal because I'd taken such good care of it over the first year. That number is fairly accurate from Black Book. When I was growing up, my family would always buy brand new cars. We never got a used car. And I suppose that put this idea in my head that used cars weren't as good as new cars. And although they may not be in certain ways, like, you may not have warranties on them or whatever, if you buy a used car, depreciation has already hit that car. So if you buy a 5-year-old car, it's already lost statistically 60% of its value, which means there's not much more for it to lose. So financially speaking, buying a used car is a much better move because you won't be at risk of losing so much money. So if you buy a $30,000 car, the first year alone, you lose $6,000 to $9,000. Over the course of 5 years, you lose over $15,000. So unless you're in a financial position to counteract that net loss, maybe like you're a millionaire, for example, or you're earning $15,000 a month and that loss isn't all that much for you, I would say it's not a very wise move to buy brand new cars, financially at least.
So the 6th thing we learned is personal finance is personal.
Yeah, personal finance is personal. It has the word personal in there for a reason. Everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different. It's just like how people are different on an individual basis, like people's finances are different. Everybody has certain situations that are different than others. Everybody's going to be in a kind of a unique situation, more or less. Brittany and I didn't follow Dave Ramsey's steps to a T, and we've gone into that in other videos. You can go back and watch our videos if you want to. But that didn't really affect our ability to pay off all of our debt. I mean, we followed Dave Ramsey's plan 90%, I would say, but what we learned from this is it's okay to deviate. Okay, the last and final thing that we're going to talk about in this video, the 7th one, and this can be applied to money or basically any area of life. Success requires a plan. We live in a cause and effect universe. Every cause has an effect. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. There's no reaction that happens without an action happening first. There's no effect that happens without a cause happening first. There's nothing in the universe that just happens. My parents, when I was 8 or 10 years old, didn't just get divorced. Something led to that. Something caused that to happen. Michael Phelps didn't just earn 1 million gold medals in the Olympics. Something brought him there, right? There is a plan. There is a course of action that he took to bring him to that result. When it comes to money and personal finance, people don't just win with money like it's some sort of accident. If you know the reactions that you want in your life, if you know the effects that you want in your life, what are the causes, what are the actions that make those things happen? The weird thing about this is because when Brittany and I were first going through Dave Ramsey's program, we had never done anything like that in our lives. We had never taken on such a big task to pay off $120,000, a nice house in some places of America, and a very nice house in a lot of places in the world.
In just 3 years.
In 3 years. We had never taken on a task that big. We had no firsthand experience with it. We had no idea if it was going to work. It doesn't really matter because all you have to do is just take action. And the actions were what created the results, and the results were what gave Brittany and I confidence and encouragement to keep moving forward.
And once we saw the success we had in paying off our debt, it motivated us to do even more. Like I don't know if we've talked about this, but we went from a $40,000 per year income up to $140,000 per year just by putting into action things that we saw that were working, especially since we saw how well it was working with us becoming out of debt.
Yeah, we saw the results. We're like, holy cow, this is working. Let's go into overdrive and
Yeah.
overdo this. As Mythbusters always say, if something's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. So we got like 6 jobs between the two of us, barely had a life, actually had no life. But those actions that we implemented created the result of us becoming debt-free in 3 years and us basically being in the financial position where we are in today. So yeah, success requires a plan. And at least in Brittany's and my case, that plan for us has been budgeting every month, keeping track of our money, knowing where each dollar of our money is going, making a process for us to start investing into things that are going to make us money and not just us throwing out money that we're never going to get back. Having an emergency fund, so we have a pile of money that's there in case we need it for emergencies. Not that we're relying on it to be wealthy or to become rich or anything, but it's there. And we're living below our means. Because if we're living below our means, that means we have extra money at the end of the month to make all this stuff happen. If we were spending every single dollar that we made every month on stuff, we wouldn't have any to invest. Like Dave Ramsey says, your income is your biggest wealth building tool. If you're going to build wealth, you have to live below that income. Your cost of living cannot match or exceed your income, or else you just can't build wealth. You can't build things that are going to make you money so you can be free. So those are the 7 biggest things that we learned from Dave Ramsey going through his program, or just that we learned on our own as a result of going through his program, that changed our lives and will change our lives forever. We hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a huge thumbs up. Follow us on Instagram. We recently created an Instagram. If you want to follow us there, it's at It's Mike and Brit. We don't have much posted, but it's there if you want to follow us. Also, if you're interested in investing, my Robinhood link is in the description below. Check that out. If you want to get a free stock, you get a free stock, I get a free stock. It helps everybody out. That being said, we really appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
I'm not sure how well I did with that point. I think I botched that up royally, but I like supercars a lot more than I do eco-friendly cars. But anyway.